Welcome viewers. I decided to make a video combining my lifelong addiction, my teenage addiction, and my current addiction, which is Pokemon, Nuzlocke, and Pokerogue, respectively. And I refuse to believe that anyone on YouTube has not heard of Pokemon before, but just to give a little introduction to Nuzlocke, just in case you haven't heard it. So, the name Nuzlocke and the idea comes from a fan-made Pokemon challenge that came from a webcomic. And this phenomenon caused people to create their own webcomics and has evolved for years on YouTube, but the very basic rules that everyone follows is that you catch the first Pokemon in each route, and that's it. So if you fail to catch it, then you don't get a Pokemon for that route. And then the second rule is that if your Pokemon faints, then it is permadead. So you either have to release it or at least box it and never use it again. And obviously if you lose all the Pokemon that you have in your team, then you wipe. Usually there are rules that you have to nickname all of your Pokemon and that you can't use items in battle, but I'm playing in Pokerogue, which doesn't let you nickname Pokemon, and also you don't have a bag to store items. You can only keep the items that are either permanent or that your Pokemon are holding, which is fine. And that brings us to Pokerogue. So there are probably a lot of people who know about Nuzlocke but might not know about Pokerogue because it's a newer fan game, but it's basically a Pokemon roguelike, where you start by choosing any of the starter Pokemon from all the generations, and there are a batch of Pokemon from each generation that you'll have the opportunity to catch or face, and you'll go through multiple randomized battles and roll random items after each Pokemon encounter or trainer that you beat. But once you lose a run, you have to start from the beginning, your save progress is lost, and the only thing that you get to keep are the Pokemon that you catch or any eggs that you hatch, which can then be used as your new starters when you start a new run. So, the way that I'm implementing the Nuzlocke rules into Pokerogue is that first of all, I can only choose one starter Pokemon, and secondly, I can only catch Pokemon every 10 rounds. This isn't arbitrary because in the game, there's a boss, either a boss Pokemon or a boss trainer, at the end of every 10 rounds, and then you get a full party heal for free after that, and so it's a natural time that I believe where then you can catch a Pokemon after that. This will give me a decent amount of chances to catch Pokemon, because the whole thing is 200 rounds, but with how difficult this game can get, I don't think that that's unfair in my advantage. And obviously, the other rule is that once my Pokemon faints, then I can immediately release it, and unlike other Pokemon games, you can release Pokemon in battle in Pokerogue, so you can basically immediately take them out. I used my own save file for this Nuzlocke, and as you can see, I'm not a brand new player, judging just from the amount of Pokemon that I have. And as you might have assumed from the title, I decided to make my one solo Pokemon Pikachu. Not only is it basically a meme, Pikachu is a surprisingly good choice. First of all, I've caught a lot of Pikachus, so my Pikachu is nearly perfect IVs, and I've also gotten a couple of egg moves. So I have Nuzzle, which can instantly paralyze any Pokemon that it can hit, which is very decent utility, and my Pikachu has Nasty Plot. So setup moves can be really good in this game especially, because when going through wild Pokemon, and sometimes from certain trainers, you can carry on the stat buffs you have, and so setting up a Nasty Plot or two can really start boosting up my power and help me take out the wild Pokemon very easily. I'm also using the Partner Pikachu, which just has overall better stats from the Let's Go Pikachu game. And there are some Pikachu exclusive upgrades that I can get throughout the Pokerogue rounds, including the Gigantamax Pikachu form, which increases its power a lot, and the Light Ball, which can be equipped permanently after finding it, and it doubles Pikachu's attacking stats, which helps a great deal, especially since the only thing Pikachu has going for it is speed, and kind of attack. So for those who aren't paying attention to the video, I was too lazy to edit in to accompany my words, and so I just showed me capturing my first Pokemon, being a crappy Poochyena with a terrible nature and IVs, but the first catch is rarely ever good. And anyway, the Pokerogue EXP curve is pretty unforgiving, so until later on, I will almost always just be using Pikachu in the battles to make sure that he gets enough levels to get me through to the mid-game, where then my better Pokemon that I hopefully have by then can be higher leveled. Skipping ahead to round 6, I show my first of many Thunderstones that appear, that I will not be taking, and I will never take because I am sticking with Pikachu and I am not evolving it into Raichu. After a Pidove that stood absolutely no chance, we finally come to round 8 with our rival. Now our rival can randomly have one of 3 types of starters, so we just do not want a grass starter. And if we could get a water starter, that would be great. And by the way, even though this is a Nuzlocke, for the sake of the plot, I will be reading the rivals' lines. So for those of you who think it's cringy, too bad. There you are. I've been looking everywhere for you. Did you forget to say goodbye to your best friend? You're going after your dream, huh? That day is really today, isn't it? Anyway, I'll forgive you for forgetting me, but on one condition. You have to battle me. So Ivy got a Fennekin, which is medium luck, but thankfully, due to good paralysis luck, I was able to set up and destroy the Fennekin and the Rookity that came afterwards with just Pikachu. I decided to show the first boss Whismur as a proof of concept that a lot of these boss Pokemon really aren't that big of a deal. As you can see me one-shot it. So basically I will only show a quote-unquote boss Pokemon if I have a casualty or an interesting battle with it. But as you can see, I'm about to catch my second Pokemon in Zigzagoon. I don't know why I'm only getting Hoenn captures, but maybe that will change 9 rounds from now. In round 14, I have a mediocre battle with one of my clones, but I get the Dynamax band, which is a crazy good drop at this point in the game. So now the moment that I get the Dynamax Mushroom, I think it's called, item, then I can get my Gigantamax Pikachu. So one problem with training Pikachu, even though it increases my odds of victory, is that there are double battles. And so since the levels of the enemies start progressing, I unfortunately have to sack my Poochyena as the first death in order to move on. Zigzagoon follows suit soon afterwards in another double battle, leaving Pikachu alone to fight the first gym leader, Cress. Unfortunately for him, having 2 water types does not bode well against my fast electric type, and so he goes down, and also cements the fact that I will also not show every gym leader battle because some of them are not worthwhile, only if something interesting happens. Because believe me, we're going to go through a lot of battles and catching and whatnot. Speaking of which, I got a Glameow and then nothing happened until the rival battle on round 25. Oh, fancy meeting you here. Looks like you're still undefeated. Not bad. I know what you're thinking, and no, I wasn't creeping on you. I just happened to be in the area. I'm happy for you, but I just want to let you know that's okay to lose sometimes. We learn from our mistakes, often more than we would if we kept succeeding. In any case, I've been training hard for our rematch, so you better give it your all. Unfortunately for her, our all is way too much for her, but we do get the move Zippy Zap, which is crazy. It's a priority base 80 move that also raises our evasion. It's really crazy. So I clean up the rest of her team, which is admittedly a lot cooler than my team, and my team doesn't get much cooler because my next catch is a Eradicate. Next up was a Grass Trainer, who had a Dartrix that took neutral electric damage, but was able to tank a hit and deal me some damage, leaving a Servine. Now after a hit to the Servine, I left it in overgrow range, dealing just enough to barely not take me out. But that was a close one, now I had to proc my Citrus Berry. On round 39, I got a chance for my Eradicate to become useful with its guts and a Toxic Orb, but the boss Grimer and Coughing caused him to die immediately. The next round let me catch a new Pokemon, which was a Machop with a bad nature, but I was just excited to have a fighting type instead of another normal type. Thanks to that, the next level led to the first evolution of this run of Machop into Machoke. But just you wait, with a couple more rounds of battling, we'll give you a linking cord and another evolution for absolutely free! You heard that right, folks, a free Machamp! In an electric v electric match against a Boltund, I took a couple too many hits than I wanted to with Pikachu, but thankfully I was able to make it out okay into the next gym battle. I was a little bit nervous for Watson because we didn't have a great answer and had the same amount of Pokemon, but I wasn't too worried. I made a risky move to set up twice against his Manectric, but thankfully it was unable to take out my Pikachu and I had a +4 in my special attack. Unfortunately, up next was Electrode, and I couldn't risk my Pikachu being slower, so I sent out Glameow, and Electrode did what it does best and took out my Glameow. From then on, I couldn't bring it back. Machamp was paralyzed, and so couldn't take out the Magnezone, and Pikachu was too weak to finish it off, leaving to the first dead attempt. Now, so that this video isn't infinite hours long, I'm just going to skip straight to the last attempt. And I want you viewers to guess which attempt this actually is, and I'll let you know at the end. The first thing that went right on this attempt was that Ivy got a water starter, being Totodile, which obviously is not only weak to Pikachu, but is also slow. Next, I caught a Lechonk to add to the Starly that I forgot to mention earlier, and... ¿Por qué estás aquí, Ricardo? ¿Por qué estás aquí? So anyway, my next encounter was a Psyduck. And much more excitingly, I got the Light Ball, which doubles my attacking stats as a Pikachu. This is crazy helpful because it's a free nasty plot essentially. My Lechonk evolved by doing absolutely nothing with the experience chair, and then I got another Machop. I skipped taking Dedenne for the next 10 slot because I don't like Dedenne, and instead took a Bronzor. And now at round 55, I face Ivy 3.
Long time no see. You still have the Pikachu, huh? You're starting to get on my nerves. Just kidding. But really, don't you miss home by now? Or me? I mean, we really missed you. I support you in your dream and everything, but the reality is you're going to lose sooner or later. And when you do, I'll be there for you, like always. Now let me show you how strong I've become.
Now I wish I could tell you that the combined might of Feraligatr, Mimikyu, Kilowattrail, and Growlithe were enough to not be swept by Pikachu. But it's a cruel world out there. Anyway, as classic as Thunderbolt is for Pikachu, I got Pikachu's final move, Pika-Pa-Pow, which is basically just Electric Return, if you know how that works, and if you don't, it's just stronger than Thunderbolt. I also found an interesting bug where I used Dig with Oinkologne, but still got hit when the enemy used Psycho Cut, so I don't know if that's a thing with Psycho Cut, or if it was this specific situation, I don't know. But anyway, I defeated Byron, which was the battle that I was talking about, without any casualties, and then at round 65, I once again got the Link Cord and was able to evolve my Machoke. But the excitement didn't last long, because the very next round, my Oinkologne got into a battle and went down fighting to her own recoil. That'll do, pig. My next encounter was an Azumarill, who ended up getting thick fat instead of huge power, so I wanted to replace him as quickly as possible. But I wasn't able to for a while because my next encounter, Weezing, exploded itself. And to make things worse, my preferred water type Golduck missed a Hydro Pump and then went down shortly afterwards. The next tragedy struck when, in a fight against Lieutenant Surge, I took 2 Zap Cannons, which means that he won a double coin flip, of course, and took out my Bronzong. So having seen it in action, I decided to get my own Belly Bolt and took him right into the next Ivy fight.
It's me. You didn't forget about me again, did you? You should be proud of how far you've made it. Congrats, but it looks like it's the end of your journey. You've awoken something in me I never knew was there. It seems like all I do now is train. I hardly even eat or sleep now. I just train my Pokemon all day, getting stronger every time. In fact, I hardly recognize myself. And now I finally reached peak performance. I don't think anyone could beat me now, especially with a Pikachu. And you know what? It's all because of you. I don't know whether to thank you or hate you. Prepare yourself.
Not to beat a dead horse of a joke, but I've sped up the battle, and you can see for yourself how it goes. Well, I thought I appeased the Belly Bolt gods, but apparently not, because a pair of Zap Cannons takes out my Machamp, but at least this time I can blame No Guard instead of the 1 in 1/4 chance. After defeating my arch nemesis, I got yet another electric type, but at least I really like Magnezone because it's a really good Pokemon. But after that is Persian, which I can't say is a good Pokemon, but I'll take it over Azumarill. Unfortunately, Persian wasn't enough to face this master trainer Plasma Grunt, who took down both Bellibolt and Staraptor. And I was so confused because this Vanillux didn't go down to Staraptor's close combat, which I have no explanation for. Thankfully, after their master trainer, Team Plasma only had Getsis to fall back on, and he was just Pikachu fodder. Then I reached the part of the game where not much happens. I caught the mid Pokemon of Jumpluff and Sarina, and then finally got to the penultimate Ivy fight. She added Rayquaza to her team, but other than that, nothing could stop the Pikachu onslaught. Yet again. I'm sorry, Ivy. I then caught a Marowak, and an unlikely Espathra that unfortunately only had 0 special attack IVs. I fought Getsis again with similar results. Then I caught a Camerupt and a Kingler before facing the Sinnoh Elite Four. And sorry, I get a little bit lazy with my note-taking, and so facing the Elite Four in my team was, of course, Pikachu, Espathra, Magnezone, Camerupt, and Kingler. I used Magnezone to help weaken the first Fortress enough for Espathra to barely take it out, which led Aaron to send out Drapion. I had to sacrifice Kingler for a safe switch into Camerupt, but Camerupt unfortunately was unable to finish it off. Thankfully, we had a double switch where he went into Heracross and I went into Pikachu, which allowed for my Pikachu sweep through the rest of the battle. I started the Bertha battle with a risky switch to Pikachu in order to take out Camerupt, but Bertha switched to Gliscor instead. Next up was Gastrodon, and since Pikachu wasn't super effective, I decided to switch to Magnezone in order to weaken it, and that sacrifice let Espathra barely miss the one-hit KO, but was able to finish it off later. This allowed Pikachu to switch in and then sweep the rest of the team. Despite my severely weakened team, I was able to Nasty Plot and then sweep Flint, and then I turned around and Nasty Plotted and swept Lucian as well. Now Cynthia was an entirely different story. Because of her super strong Pokemon, including Mega Garchomp and Giratina, I was forced to Nasty Plot and then sweep all of her Pokemon. But now I was in the final round, and things weren't looking good. I only have 3 Pokemon left, and they aren't the strongest Pokemon in the world, but I was about to get 2 boons that were a godsend. So to explain, other than the 2 bosses, all of the Pokemon on this level are Paradox Pokemon, which you can't catch unless you've hatched them already, and I just happened to hatch a really good Pokemon that I encountered in Fluttermane. Fluttermane is both crazy, but more importantly is a fairy type, and without the switch in of fairy type, I would not have been able to beat the final 2 bosses. The second important thing was that at the very last moment, I got Max Mushrooms finally, which let me evolve my Pikachu into the big boy.
So, it's just us again. You know, I keep going around and around in my head. There's something to all this, why everything seems so strange now. You have your dream, and I have this ambition in me, and I just can't help but feel there's a greater purpose to all this, to what we're doing, you and I. I think I'm supposed to push you to your limits. I'm not sure if I've been doing a good job at that, but I've tried my best up to now. It's something about this strange and dreadful place. Everything seems so clear. This is all the world has known for a long time now. It's like I can barely remember the memories we cherished together. Were they even real? They seem so far away now. You need to keep pushing, because if you don't, it will never end. You're the only one who can do this. I don't know what all this means, but I feel like it's true. If you can't defeat me here and now, you won't stand a chance.
With the final Ivy fight, I was stressed, but I kept a clear head. Pikachu was able to sweep through most of the team, taking out Feraligatr, Arcanine, Mimikyu, and Slaking, but when the Mega Rayquaza came out is when it became fun. So I used Fluttermane to bait out the Outrages, so I wouldn't take damage, this is why a Fairy type was necessary, and used this until I was able to kill the final Kilowattrel with Moonblast, leaving just the Mega Rayquaza. Then, thanks to Fluttermane's good special defense, I decided to let it stay in since this is special attacking Mega Rayquaza, but it didn't matter because it missed Hurricane every time, which let me take down the monster with just my Fluttermane. So all that's left is...
It appears the time has finally come once again. You know why you have come here, do you not? You were drawn here because you've been here before. Countless times, though perhaps it can be counted. To be precise, this is in fact your 5,643,853rd cycle. Each cycle your mind reverts to its former state. Even so, somehow, remnants of your former selves remain. Until now you have yet to succeed, but I sense a different presence in you this time. You are the only one here, though it is as if there is another. Will you finally prove a formidable challenge to me? The challenge I've longed for millennia. We begin.
Since it's not a super long battle, I wanted to show the entire Eternatus fight without any interruptions and kind of try a live go through it. So unfortunately Camerupt immediately died, but luckily for me, Eterna Beam is a recharge type move, so I was able to use Lumina Crash, which lowers special defense, and thanks to my Spathra's Opportunist, I get all of the Eternatus boosts that it would normally use to wreck my team. I use Protect in order to scout out the Sludge Bomb, so I don't want to go to Flutter Mane. I did that just in case I use a Dragon type move. So I was able to bring it down to its max hand form. I'd like to call it its master hand form. And this allows me to go into a double team squad, which thankfully sends out Flutter Mane. Pikachu also would have been fine, but its attacks are mostly not very effective. So I keep on using Lumina Crash, and thankfully I'm able to survive using the buffs that I stole. And this lets the damage compound between the attacks from both of my sides. And Eternatus makes a major misplay by attacking into the Flutter Mane instead of the Espathra here, which lets Espathra finish it off.
Magnificent.
Yeah, so I got super lucky with my encounters and items, but it did take some skill. But yeah, so this was attempt 10, so not a crazy amount of attempts, if some of you guessed, like in the dozens or something like that. But yeah, I didn't voice this ending part, sorry, or you're welcome, depending. But yeah, it took me a long time to edit this video, because I was just busy and sitting on it for a while, but thank you for enjoying, and I'll see you next time, viewers.